So this little 12.5-inch laptop is the Civilbook Air according to my box, but it's also known as the T-Book Air and the Shoma 21 from Onda, but that model has two USB 3 ports on it and a micro SD card. Anyway, it's very light. This thing is only 1.08 kilos, so super portable, full metal design, and it is around about 13 millimeters thick. As you can see, very thin. But before we go any further, it's got some rather large deal breakers on that you should know about. On the right hand side, we just have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and on the left, a Type-C port. That is it. Port-wise, there's nothing else. So if you're someone that hates carrying around adapters, even though they do include it in the box, then this isn't going to be clearly the laptop for you. The included adapter they give you is just a USB 3, then HDMI out and power in. That's it. So you only got one USB 3 port, but you can use adapters like this one. I've got this Habit that I rather like, and that gives me full-size HDMI out for display out, Type-C in for charging, and 3 USB 3 ports. Not only that, also a SD card reader. And because it's a Type-C hub that does support continual data charging and display out all at the same time, it can be used as a one port hub, which is what I'm doing. So all I need to do is sit this down on my desk, got my monitor already connected up, my USB mouse and keyboard, plug that in, and straight away I've got everything and charging all at the same time. But I must admit, it is quite a hassle to have to always carry around an adapter for this if I want to access my micro SD card or a USB pen drive. So it is powered by the super common Celeron N3450, which is an Apollo Lake CPU. It's got 4 GB of RAM. Comes with Windows 10 Home, but there's another con here straight away, that it doesn't have a valid license with it. So it keeps asking me to activate Windows, so you need to supply your own CD key with this model, which is not good. Straight off the bat, we should never have to do this. It's also got wireless AC and 128 GB SSD. And once you first boot it up, you have approximately 106 to 105 GB free on that M.2 SATA 3 SSD. So the screen is a 12.5-inch IPS panel that is glossy, what I thought it was at first, but it turns out it's got a screen protector on it. Once you remove the screen protector, it's then matte underneath, so you can decide whether you want to keep it on for the glossy panel or remove it if you get sick of the reflections. Now the panel itself has a maximum output of 430 lux, which is very decent, so it's a bright screen, and the calibration of it I find to be quite good. The whites are neither warm nor too cool and offers good colors. Now you're seeing on camera a little bit of flicker here, but that only happens on camera. To the naked eye looking at this now, I can't see any of that flicker. So it's got a very nice screen on there. Now the keyboard on it, even though it's 12.5 inches, is reasonably spacious. Pressing down hard, there is very little flex on that keyboard. Firm, I like the response of the keys. They've got 1.4 millimeters of travel. And overall, not a bad keyboard at all. One of the better ones on the Apollo Lake laptops. However, the power button could be in a better location. It has the exact same resistance as the other keys, but so far I haven't accidentally triggered it. Palm rest has virtually no flex. The whole thing is really solid, made out of metal. You only get a little bit of plastic on the rear for the wireless antenna reception. Now there is a big problem with what is hard to see on camera. Right here there's a fingerprint reader. Now this is an ELAN fingerprint reader, and I've searched on the official website. I've downloaded, I've tried driver updating software. Whatever I do, I cannot get this damn thing to work, and I've wasted a good hour or so trying to fix it. It's got a problem with the drivers on there. Maybe it's hardware related, maybe it's another driver conflicting with it, but I cannot get it to work. The touchpad itself though is very good. It's decent, I like it. I don't have to resort to using a mouse, which is great because we've only got that one port on the side here, and you don't want to have to give that up using an adapter and a USB mouse. It does support gestures, and it is a precision touchpad, so we have full control over those gestures. You're able to disable the ones that you don't like. So the front-facing camera is a 2 megapixel one according to Windows, even though the stats on the website claim that it's only VGA, but it's telling me that it can record 720p 30 frames per second. But when I have recorded images using the webcam here, it is really quite poor and not a good webcam at all that's on this. Now the microphones, as you can see, those two little dots left and right of the webcam right here, I like the location of them because normally the microphone's down on the keyboard, you get a lot of vibration and feedback from the keys, but they aren't particularly good mics either. So webcam and microphones I would rate as about a 6 out of 10 on this particular laptop. So the frame around the screen has a little bit of flex to it, but overall it's quite solid, and even the lid pressing down. So if you're going to put this in a backpack with some books pressing up against it, I don't believe that the screen and the keyboard are going to be pressed up, causing scratches on the screen here, because it seems really quite solid to me. So when it comes to speakers, there is no visible speaker grill on here, so they're not either upwards or downwards firing speakers, but I feel that they're coming through the keys, so they're just internal speakers here. Let's have a listen to how they sound. Overall, they aren't too bad. I have heard worse and I have heard better. The loudness of them is okay. There is a little bit of distortion and vibration at 100% volume. Now the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is on the right hand side here, outputs clean audio. There's no static over it, and it seems reasonably loud too. So I've got here an example of the battery life that we get out of it. It's got a 30 watt hour battery in there, which equates to 8,000 milliamp hours, more or less. Now I've had the screen on 100% brightness and just internet use, and you can see that it's going to tell me I've got around 4 hours. So that's not good at all, that is bad. But it is 100% brightness. Now if I chop the brightness down to 25%, 50%, I can squeeze around 5.5 hours out of this. So the battery life is really not good at all. It should be so much better considering how light and portable this is. It is just letting it down. I would love to have all day battery life, or at least 7 or 8 hours that you can get out of other Apollo Lake powered laptops like the EasyBook 3 Pro or the Chewy Lapbook 14.1. So I needed to confirm a few things, the exact size of the SSD and the exact location of those speakers. And the only way to do that, of course, is to open it up and have a look. So very good build quality here. Everything's screwed in place. Battery is screwed down. We can see the wireless AC chip there, that Intel one, the 3165. Now we've got a full-sized SATA 3 M.2 SSD here, so it's the 22 by 80 millimeter one, and there's a nice heatsink, copper heatsink on top of the Apollo Lake N3450, the Celeron branded one there. So really good here. Two 4,000 milliamp hour cells as well. So the CPU is a quad core. It's the Intel Celeron N3450 with a maximum turbo 2.2 GHz. We have 4 GB of RAM that's running at 1600 MHz, which is the highest it will go. And I've allocated 167 megabytes to the GPU. Now I have a few benchmarks here I want to quickly show you. So first up is the Antutu score of 121,000, which is decent. This is what other devices with this chipset are getting. So nothing really wrong with that at all. And the Geekbench score, again, very similar scores to other devices. So perfectly fine here. It even comes up, as you can see, as the T-Bao Tbook Air, and the BIOS boot logo is the same. So it doesn't even mention Civiltop here, which is interesting. Now the wireless speeds, good download speeds from the wireless AC, reasonably good range, definitely better than wireless in Realtek chipsets we've typically used to see in the old Atom devices. But the upload speed, that should be faster. Around 61, it should really be up around about 260 plus, 250 plus, so not sure what's up with that. I did test it quite a few times at different times of the day, and I was always getting about that maximum. So it could be the way the antennas are, not really too sure about that. So if I go into any of my videos here, because I shoot them in 4K, just have a look at the EasyBook 3. This is Edge, and it streams 4K just fine. And that is actually auto 4K already. Now I enable the stats here, and we've got no drop frames, performance really good, buffer health there is 25 seconds, great. So no problems with that performance of streaming 4K. Now if it's to do the same in Chrome, no, not as good, it drops frames, but the performance overall, this is my website here with lots of images, quite smooth in Chrome, you see not perfect, it is a little smoother in Edge. Overall, the performance of the laptop I find to be really quite good considering the chipset. You can do a bit of multitasking, getting around, things boot up quick, thanks to that SSD that it's got, of course. Now the SSD speeds, read speeds here are good, but the write speeds are a little bit slow. Now you can of course improve on that. If you wanted to put a larger SSD in there, you have to use the 22x80 spec, so the longer M.2 SATA 3 SSDs. Taking a look at gaming performance here, this is Asphalt Extreme. Windows Store game. You see the performance is quite good. It's running, I'd say, a little bit smoother and faster than other Apollo Lake devices I've looked at. Really quite good. Seems to me that they've put some faster RAM in here perhaps. But it is one of the smoothest. This is 1080p on the default visual setting. Now look at Counter-Strike. So this is on 800x600 resolution on the lowest settings. What I mean, testing on all the Apollo Lakes, and you can see the frame rate is really good, over 60 frames per second here at the moment. And I've got around, I think it's about 12, 15 people on the server there. And yes, I cannot kill people. Oh, I managed to get a headshot. That was a fluke. And another one, another fluke. And even another one. 3 flukes in a row. No, but the frame rate is really helping here because it is over 60 frames per second, which is really good. I've never seen it this fast on an Apollo Lake. Whoops, bad timing. And that means I can kill people a hell of a lot easier here. So it does dip down to, you can see, around 40 frames per second, but back up to 60 again. And this is Dota 2 on 800x600 resolution, lowest settings, scraping just above 20 frames per second. It's a bot match, so I've got 4 bots on my side, 4 on the opposition. So bear that in mind, that if you are playing a multiplayer game, so it's not calculating the bots, it should run, I would say, a lot faster than this. It's just when you get into the action here, of course, that it's taking a toll, I think, on the CPU, but really this performance is not ideal. This game is too slow. League of Legends here now. This is running the native screen resolution, so 1080p. The lowest visual settings, but as you can see, the frame rate is good. Now this is a bot match with 1 bot on my team, 2 on the opposition, and the frame rate's hovering around 60 frames per second, so really good. This is probably the fastest I have seen the Apollo Lake N3450 run this game. So very good performance out of this Civiltop Air, or the T-Book Air, or whatever you want to call it. So after all of that gaming, the thermals are very good here. So 74 degrees is the top it gets up to. Maximum temperatures, that's on the GPU, and the CPU doesn't ever seem to go past 73 degrees. So very good results here, because we do have that copper heatsink inside, and that's transferring all that heat away. Now it does get a little warm just around the palm rest area on the left hand side. So just down this area here. Get a bit of heat here, but it's not too bad. Around 38 degrees I've measured it to be. So not scorching hot or anything like that, not enough to be a problem. So does Linux boot and run on it? Yes, it does. Check my unboxing video for that, but it will run everything apart from this right here, which is the touchpad. There's some problems with the drivers, so you're going to have to hunt around and find the touchpad driver, but everything else seems to be fine. I haven't installed it onto the hard drive, so I'm not too sure whether that's going to work or not, but it did run from my USB pen drive. So to recap my findings now, I love the size of this thing. It's so light, it's portable, it's got a really nice screen, decent keyboard, good touchpad, and the performance of it too is excellent. But there are some major cons. Straight out of the box, the fingerprint reader does not work, and it doesn't have a valid Windows 10 license. They've used some kind of demo install one, which you should never have to do when buying a new laptop, is have to pay for an additional license. So there's a huge error there. And I think the hardware on the fingerprint reader is either broken or there's some impossible to solve driver conflict there. And the lack of ports isn't obvious. This really is not for everyone, because I would love to have a micro SD card on there at least. And even though I've got that Type-C port, means I can have data charging, display out all at the same time. I would probably give that up, me personally, to have two USB 3 ports, DC in charging, and the micro SD card slot. So the battery life is also another con here. It is disappointing. It's only about 5.5 hours, and that's really not enough, because they're advertising this, well, it's made to be a portable little laptop, but you want really a full day's use out of it, and you're clearly not going to get it. So can I recommend it end of the day? No. I say go for the Shoma 21. I haven't reviewed that one yet, but I do hope to get hold of that in the future and check that one out, as it looks promising and hopefully a lot better than this one here. Thanks a lot for watching this review here, and I do hope to see you back in the channel soon with a lot more future up and coming reviews that I have planned. And if you do have any questions, let me know down in the comments.